I never thought I'd find myself standing in the pouring rain outside my son's apartment, clutching a suitcase with trembling hands. My heart pounded like I was a teenager, nervous and hopeful, instead of a 63-year-old woman who had spent her entire retirement savings on a surprise visit. After nearly a full day of traveling, layovers, delays, dragging my tired body across terminals, I had imagined this moment so differently. I thought Brandon would be happy, maybe even emotional. But when he opened the door, the look on his face wasn't joy. It was confusion, then disappointment, and finally hesitation. "What are you doing here?" he asked, eyes darting behind me as if embarrassed someone might see me. I forced a smile, though it faltered. "I wanted to surprise you. Can I come in?" There was a pause, just long enough to sting before he stepped aside. "You should have called first." Inside, the apartment looked like a furniture catalog. Clean lines, modern, cold. No photos. No clutter. No sign of the boy who used to fill our home with seashells and baseball cards. I placed my suitcase gently on the spotless floor, afraid to leave a scuff. "Nice place," I said. Brandon glanced at his watch. "I have a dinner meeting in an hour." I wasn't expecting visitors. I tried to laugh it off. "I can wait. Or maybe I could come with you." His reply was a short, sharp laugh. "It's a business dinner, Mom. This isn't a good time." Something in me cracked. "I traveled halfway across the world to see you, Brandon. I used my retirement savings for this trip." For the first time he paused. But it wasn't guilt in his eyes. It was irritation. "That was your choice. I didn't ask you to come." We went to dinner anyway. A place so upscale the prices weren't even listed. Brandon spent most of the time on his phone, nodding absently when I spoke, never once asking why I came. I tried to bridge the silence. "Your father would be proud. You've built a life for yourself in a new country." He didn't look up. Dad would have understood boundaries. And advanced notice. The silence that followed was heavier than the rain I'd stood in. When our food arrived, we ate without talking. Then he sighed and finally set his phone aside. "Look, Mom. I'm not trying to be mean, but you can't just show up like this. My life is here now. I've got responsibilities. I'm your mother. Not some embarrassing secret," I whispered. "You should have called," he repeated. "I don't have space for your kind of drama." I didn't argue. I just nodded and pushed food around my plate. Something heavy settled in my chest. Something that felt like finality. After Zachary died, Brandon was all I had. I worked 2 jobs to pay for his education. I supported his move abroad. And now, here I was, barely tolerated in his presence. Back at his apartment, he showed me to the guest room. It was more like a hotel room. Clean, impersonal, cold. I sat on the edge of the bed, facing the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked older than I remembered. I opened my suitcase and took out a small wooden box. Inside were papers. Legal documents I had planned to show Brandon in person. Caroline, my sister, had passed away suddenly. We hadn't spoken in years, yet she left me everything. 3 valuable properties in our coastal hometown. I had thought the money could help us both, maybe bring us closer again. But now, in that sterile room, I quietly slipped the box back into the suitcase. Instead, I picked up my phone and called Anthony, Caroline's attorney. "I'd like to make changes to our plans," I said. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Did you meet with your son?" I stared at the closed office door across the hall. "Yes, and I've made a decision. Let's proceed with the foundation idea. All of it. Properties, investments, everything. None of it for Brandon." Anthony paused, then asked, "Are you sure? You were pretty set on him getting the beach house." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Plans change. People do too. Sleep didn't come that night. I sat by the window, watching the city lights shimmer in the distance. This place, this life, it wasn't mine. But I knew one thing. I wouldn't let it define me. By morning I had made up my mind. Brandon was already dressed for work when I emerged. His eyes were on his tablet, his coffee half drunk. I've booked myself a flight home for tomorrow, I said. He looked up. Relief flickered across his face. That's probably for the best. I can help you find a hotel for tonight. No need, I replied. I've already found one. He opened his mouth to say something. Mom, about last night. It's fine, Brandon, I interrupted. I understand now. But what I didn't tell him was what else I understood. That I had spent enough years waiting for his approval. I had my own path now, one that didn't involve begging for space in his world. And I was going to walk to the hotel later that evening. I sat in bed with the lamp on low and a legal pad in front of me. I began outlining ideas Anthony and I had only briefly discussed before, visions for the Parker Family Foundation. At first, it felt strange writing it all out, but as the ideas poured onto the page, I felt something shift inside me. Not anger. Not grief. Just a calm certainty that it was time to do something with the life I had left. Not for Brandon. For me. 3 months later, I stood on the deck of what had once been Caroline's beach house, watching the golden sunset melt into the sea. The salty breeze carried the faint scent of jasmine, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was missing something. I had repainted the house, refurbished it with care, and turned it into a space where community could flourish. And now, it was the heart of the Parker Family Foundation. Mrs. Parker, they're ready for you, Megan said from behind the French doors. She was my assistant now, still a word that sounded foreign to me, and inside the house a modest crowd of donors, officials, and townsfolk waited for the official launch. Just a minute, I said, taking a breath. Caroline had left me more than assets. The beach house, the downtown property, and the 10 undeveloped acres now collectively valued at over $4 million. It overwhelmed me at first. My instinct had been to share it with Brandon, to lift him up. But his cold rejection had taught me that sharing without mutual respect only leaves you depleted. Instead, the money was funding scholarships for single parents, senior housing support, and local development. The land, in partnership with a conservation group, was set to become a nature preserve with outdoor classrooms for local schools. Inside, I gave my speech. I looked out over the crowd and saw Joseph in the back, tall, gentle-eyed, and calm. Caroline's old neighbor. The man who had been a stranger until recently, now a trusted friend. He'd supported me through each stage of this project, never pushing, always present. After the speech, people mingled. Some asked about future partnerships. Others just offered congratulations. And then, as I was sipping a glass of sparkling water on the edge of the crowd, I turned and saw a tall man with familiar eyes standing just beyond the buffet table. Brandon. He looked out of place in his tailored suit, like a corporate man who had wandered into a grassroots community event. Beside him stood a woman with short black hair and thoughtful eyes. She smiled when she saw me and gently nudged Brandon forward. I wasn't sure what I felt. Surprise, yes. A flicker of hope, maybe. But mostly caution. I stepped toward them slowly. Mom, Brandon said, his voice lower than usual. This is Sophia. Sophia extended a hand. It's so good to finally meet you, Mrs. Parker. I took her hand. Please call me Cora. She smiled with warmth, but I could feel the nervous energy between them. This is a wonderful event, she said genuinely. You've done something incredible here. Thank you, I replied. Brandon shifted uncomfortably. Could we speak somewhere private? Megan guided us to the study, away from the voices and clinking glasses. Once the door shut, Brandon turned to me with tension radiating off him. Did you talk to the press about me? The question hit like ice water. Of course not, I said, taken aback. Why would I? He looked at me hard. Because I got a call this morning from a reporter. They asked about my company, the inheritance, and our relationship. They knew too much. I frowned. I got a similar message. Anthony said the foundation was contacted too. Brandon stared at me. Then who? Came to me like a slap. Name. Memory. Sophia opened the door. Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here asking to speak with both of you. A Mr. Victor Reeves. The name hit harder than I expected. I hadn't heard it in years. "We'll be right out," I said to Sophia. I turned to Brandon. "We need to handle this together." "Agreed." He hesitated, then nodded. "Agreed." Victor was on the deck, champagne in hand, smile as smooth as ever. He hadn't aged well, but his arrogance remained untouched. "Cora," he said. "And this must be Brandon. I've heard so much." "From whom?" Brandon asked. Victor's grin widened. "People talk. Especially when there's money involved." I folded my arms. "What do you want?" "I represent a group of investors. The undeveloped land your sister left. Perfect spot for a luxury resort. I can make you a generous offer." "It's already committed to the Coastal Conservation Group," I said. He waved that away. Short-sighted but understandable. "Still, if the foundation came under scrutiny, if your leadership was called into question." "You leaked the story to the press," Brandon said. Victor shrugged. "I encouraged a little public interest." Brandon took a step forward. "My business is my problem. My mother's foundation is off-limits." Victor sneered. "So you're fine with nothing, while your mother controls millions?" Brandon looked him straight in the eye. "My mother has earned everything she has. And whatever I get or don't get, it's not your business." Victor's smile vanished. "You're making a mistake," he warned. "No," I said quietly. "Caroline made a mistake once. Trusting you. I won't do the same." Victor left without another word. As he disappeared into the crowd, Brandon turned to me. There was no anger in his eyes now, only something closer to respect. "That was the truth," I said, "and lately I've started to speak it more often." He nodded. "I noticed." Later that evening, after most of the guests had left and the string lights dimmed over the deck, Brandon, Sophia, Joseph, and I sat together with glasses of wine and the sound of ocean waves in the background. The tension from earlier had faded, replaced by something new, something cautious but hopeful. For the first time in years, Brandon wasn't guarded. He was quiet, reflective, and present. "So what happens now?" he asked, swirling the wine in his glass. "With your business, I mean." "It's over," he admitted. "Bankruptcy proceedings begin next week." I glanced at Sophia. She placed a steady hand over his. "We've been talking about next steps. I've accepted a position here, with an environmental restoration group. Coastal rehabilitation, wetlands, that kind of work. It's something I believe in." She smiled at him. "And Brandon's exploring options too." Brandon nodded, still looking out at the waves. "Something smaller, more meaningful. I've been thinking about architectural preservation, maybe starting over in a way that feels honest." "Starting over is terrifying," I said, my voice soft. "But freeing too." He looked at me, his eyes vulnerable. "That's what I've been feeling. Both." The boy who once needed everything to look perfect was now sitting in front of me, stripped of illusions, finally real. I thought of how I had started over, standing alone at that same deck months ago, unsure of who I was. And here he was, at the same beginning. "I have a proposal," I said, choosing my words with care. "The Foundation has been discussing launching a historical preservation initiative, restoring old buildings for community use. We need someone with experience. Someone who understands preservation and modern needs." Brandon's eyebrows lifted slightly. "You want me to do it?" "I want to offer you a consulting role," I clarified. "Part-time with a formal contract. Modest pay. It's not charity, it's work that needs to be done. The town library renovation is first on the list." He was quiet for a long moment. "I'd need to wrap up in Singapore. I don't want anything handed to me." "Then earn it," I said gently. "But the door's open." Joseph smiled beside me. "The library project would be a good start. It's falling apart, but it has character." Brandon smiled faintly. "Sounds like me." We all chuckled softly. It wasn't perfect, but it was a beginning. Later, Joseph and I walked along the moonlit beach, our hands brushing together, comfortable in the silence. "You're rebuilding a relationship with your son," he said quietly. "That's no small thing." "We're trying," I replied. "It's hard. But maybe it's worth it." "And the foundation?" he asked. "It's growing," I said. "Caroline would be proud, I think." "She would," Joseph replied. "In some ways, you're finishing the work she never could." I wish I'd understood her better. "She connected with numbers and properties," Joseph said. "But people. That was harder for her." "I spent so long living for Brandon," I said. "And my students. I never thought about building a life outside of that." "And now?" he asked, stopping to face me. "Now," I smiled, "I'm learning. Day by day." 1 year later, I stood at a podium inside what had once been the crumbling town library. Now, it was the Parker Community Arts Center, restored with care under Brandon's direction. The grand opening was attended by families, artists, and local officials. Music programs, art studios, and community spaces filled the building. Life had returned to its walls. "This project represents everything the Parker Family Foundation stands for," I said, glancing at Brandon and Sophia in the front row. Sophia held their sleeping baby in her arms, and Joseph sat proudly beside them. "It's not just about preserving the past, it's about creating a future." I paused, my gaze sweeping over the crowd. My sister Caroline knew how to value property. But this year, I've learned that our true inheritance isn't in real estate or bank accounts. It's in the connections we make, the trust we rebuild, and the communities we lift up. After the ceremony, as we gathered for photos, Brandon leaned close and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me. Even when I should have." I asked with a gentle smile. "Especially then," he said. As we stood there, Joseph took the baby from Sophia so she could join us for a picture. I looked at them all, my son, his family, this strange, beautiful new version of what we once were, and felt something settle in me. Not closure, not an ending, but a beginning. Later that night, Joseph and I sat on the same deck, a blanket around our shoulders and a bottle of wine between us. The ocean whispered like it always had. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "I've been waiting for the right moment," he said. He opened it. A simple, elegant ring. "I think this is it." I looked at him. The sky. At the life I had built from the ruins of heartbreak. "Yes," I whispered. "This is it." And in that quiet, perfect moment I knew. At 64, Cora Parker's story wasn't over. It was just beginning.